Hello and welcome to another episode of the 21st Century Work Life podcast, where we talk about how the world of work and our attitudes to work are changing. If we've never met before, my name is Pilar Orti, and you can find out about other things I do, that I write and I voice over at virtualnotdistant.com. And today we have another guest episode, and a very special one, because I've been waiting for this guest to come on the show ever since I appeared on his LinkedIn show, where we had a great time, and I just really enjoyed the conversation, and we've had a couple of conversations without recording before since then. So can you say hello to our listeners, guest?
Hello. I am Sagar Chandni, and I'm looking forward to this exciting podcast. Pilar, just help me if I get nervous, okay?
Oh, well, nerves are great. It means we care. So, and we are recording, so anything goes. So this is great. And Sagar, I'm not quite sure how to introduce you, because you like many of our guests, unlike myself, do a wide range of things. But I am curious about, in your LinkedIn profile, you say that you're a strategy leader with a heart. Can you expand on that?
Thank you for putting that out. Sometimes I used to wonder, I am the only one who is, in a way struggling to introduce myself. But now I understand that how difficult it is, because I think over a period of time, we are playing several hats, and we want to create value. And to create value, it is very important to connect with the people that, or the stakeholders that you want to create value, or the community. So I thought, why don't I, share, or rather introduce myself as a strategy leader with a heart. Reason being that in the last decade, I've been helping emerging businesses. I'm consulting new businesses, startups on their 0 to 1 journey. Apart from that, I have also launched a couple of initiatives where I have strategized, certain or rather key elements of business. So I thought that, when you are building something, or when a new company or a new business is being developed, it is really, really important to also think from your heart, from your soul, to build their businesses. Reason being, if you see a lot of businesses that exist, or other corporate organizations that they exist, at any given point in time, or in their first leg of their journey, they were also a startup. They were also a business. But over a period of time, as things get more process oriented, more system oriented, and when thousands of brains come together, I just feel that in those brains the heart gets lost. So that's why I call myself a strategy leader with a heart.
Yeah, and I love that, because actually a lot of organizations, and especially when they're talking about how to attract the younger generations, they talk about, we need to have a purpose, we need to have values. And yes, however, if you just say we need to have a heart, that is, it's more encompassing, and it's a really good expression, actually. And we don't hear it often. Talking about that in business.
Yes, it took me 1.5 years to come to that, by the way.
Well, we're on an ever evolving journey as people and professionals. So Sagar, I wanted to speak to you today because, you're in a completely different part of the world to myself and to quite a few listeners, and also a part of the world that I know very little about. So I'm very curious. But before that, as well as a leader with a strategy leader with a heart, you also say you're a distributed work practitioner. When did you gain this identity, actually?
So what happened is, in the first phase of my career, after completing my education, I thought it is a good time to do something of my own. I'm talking about back in 2013, in the year 2013, I thought...
Sagar, can we just stop a second? Is there noise behind you?
Yeah. Now I can also, I can just go and, just request my neighbor to stop the work for some time.
If you can do that, be great.
Yes, Pilar, they are very kind neighbors, and they just stopped it.
I'm very impressed. That's a good,
Yeah.
a good neighbor
Yes.
relationship. Excellent. Thank you. Good. Let's just pick it up. So I'd ask you about this distributed work practitioner. When did you start to identify with that
Sure.
identity?
So as soon as I completed my education, I really wanted to start something of my own. And because of my passion of traveling, I thought, why not I start make people and businesses, or for that matter, my colleagues travel different parts of the world. So I launched my own travel company. And 1.5 years into running my business, I realized that I've been operating my business from home back in 2013. And during that time in India, the concept of distributed work, remote work, hybrid work, flexible work did not exist much, or rather, it was not being openly discussed even in media, or for that matter, even social media was not as popular as it is today. So that is, when I reflect back, that already I was inducted into practicing distributed work way back in 2013. And then later in 2016, I got an opportunity to launch a co working space in the city where I first heard about the term flexible ways of working. And during one of the conferences that I attended in a nearby neighboring country, Malaysia, on co-working, it was a conference organized for co-working community. That's where I heard the word first time, remote work slash distributed working ways, distributed ways of working. So I think since then, I've been always curious to know, okay, how global companies or global startups are building teams across the planet and how they are achieving their objectives. So since then, it has been with me. And then during the pandemic, for 2 years, I was as a part of an incubator, and a business incubator is a place where consulting for emerging businesses happen, and everything happens on ground. But COVID really made us relook at how we provide that support to emerging businesses online. So that's where, the major learning curve of actually running a kind of a consulting firm which has a fundamental basis is physical in nature, and doing it online, made me a complete distributed working practitioner or a professional. So I would say, this is how the journey is.
Yeah. And just remind me, when is it that you started your travel company? When was that?
It was in the year 2013.
A nice long journey. And tell me, so you're saying that back then, or when, a few years into that you realized you started to come across the concepts of flexible work and distributed and remote. What is the profile of remote in India now, of remote work?
I would say in India, there were a very few organizations that used to allow work from home as an incentive. I'm talking about in the year 2013 to, let's say, 2017. And there were very few technical positions in which, the professionals had a liberty to work from home or remotely. But that was more as a perk. And then later, I think it is the pandemic that actually, created that very big ripple effect of people actually working from home, because organizations didn't have much choice but to trust their team, or they have to deliver to several clients. So they were left with no choice. But prior to that, very, very few industries, I would say cybersecurity industries or IT, information technology sector, I think it was very limited to that. And also with respect to startups now, there were emerging businesses really need to plan their operational expenses well. So to save, expenses on infrastructure, there were a few handful of startups, or there was a wave where out of 10, let's say 2 startups or 2 businesses were giving opportunities to their team members to work from home. But again, to save cost. It is now, since pandemic, it has been very intentional. Organizations have become very intentional about giving opportunities to team members or other leaders themselves also are operating through distributed ways of working, because now they have the researched data available on the productivity. So yeah.
What's the world of work like there, and the progression of work?
That's a very, very good question, Pilar. So, honestly, in the times we live in post pandemic, people are choosing to work from office. That's the reality. Ultimately, it depends on the person, how the person is looking at distributed ways of working or flexible ways of working. There are very few professionals, or few, I would say a very limited set of community who are thinking about work life integration, who are intentional about shifting their skill sets in order to live a lifestyle where they are flexible or remote in nature. But a major audience sect is yet to make that transition. Most of the technology companies with a team size of 300 to 2000 team members, these companies have a working model where people can work remotely. But again, it is the nature of the business. I have a first cousin who works with a online content management company, and they are a team size of 1000 plus. Now, because of the nature of the business is such that they have to write or produce content online or virtually. So, because of that, now they have an advantage. But because of the mindset of working in office, they are yet to evolve. For them, it is more or less still they are working from home, but from the mindset, they are still learning. How do I ensure that the distributed ways of working is can create impact in their personal life, or the areas where they would want to express themselves if they are not working.
I hadn't thought of that because I've always taken that for granted, because the way I've been seeing it, a lot of the remote work movement has come from a personal point of view, as in saying, well, I would like this, therefore remote work would enable me in my personal life to be in this way. But actually, I hadn't thought that sometimes if we're new to this and we know how to do the remote work thing, but actually we still haven't discovered how that affects our lives, which traditionally had been in a certain way. Wow, I love that.
Yeah. And Pilar, thank you for putting that out. I just wanted to share that we are using these words interchangeably, right? Remote, flexible, hybrid, and distributed work. And a lot of the definitions, as far as I am concerned, because my learning of these definitions happen on Google, or now I would say ChatGPT, or the books that we read. But I think it is very important that how we are perceiving each one of them. Now, what happens is the way I think currently, remote work is being communicated on LinkedIn or otherwise. I see that a lot of companies want to offer it as a perk or as an added benefit. Although from their ethos, they would want to build organizations that are remote first in nature. And again, there are a very handful of them, where the ethos itself comes as remote first in nature. And being remote first means that you have to be extremely disciplined, which means that, the discipline that requires to go to an office, it requires even more discipline, and it's a complete lifestyle shift. It's a more than that, it's a mindset shift. So for me, the reason I choose to call myself a distributed work practitioner, because I have realized it that I need to constantly evolve and learn skills which allows me to also represent my organization or organization of clients at any part of the world in a distributed way, with having skills of working remotely and also having skills to go at a particular destination and being able to deliver it in the way that is expected. So I think I have carved my own definition in this part, starting with my own heavy reliance on the word remote. So I feel that intention is very important, and I'm promoting that intention with calling myself a distributed working professional.
It's fascinating because I think also this is very 21st century, which is mindset, which is really, it's part of your identity. It's such as it, for me, it feels like being a distributed worker is such a part of your identity now. And the word you've chosen, as you're saying, is very specific. You're not calling yourself a virtual or remote. It is distributed because for you, it's not just about being able to work from anywhere. Yeah, that's part of it. But it's what working from anywhere is enabling you to do, not just from work point of view, but also from a relationship forming point of view, from a, like you say, advocacy point of view. So it's really... It's very rich. And sometimes, like, I don't know if other people do this, but I see, oh, distributed work practitioner. I think, oh, that's a nice title. But actually, hearing you, that is, sometimes we underestimate the amount of thought, philosophizing and work, personal work that someone has actually gone through to arrive at that.
Yeah.
Really very interesting.
Thank you.
What work do you do with startups, and what's the startup ecosystem like in India and how that is evolving? You know, all of that.
Sure. So first I will talk about or share more about the startup ecosystem, and then I will talk about the work I do.
Great.
Startup ecosystem. I think the word startup wasn't even mentioned in even blogs back in 2016 or 15 in India. Currently, looking at the stage that India is, looking at the population that, India is, I think it's number 2 in the world with respect to population. It is the need of the hour with respect to the Indian, I would say, if as per the Indian growth or Indian economic plan. Considering the age group currently, if you see in India, the average age is between 28 and 34, which means a lot of them have worked in an industry or a particular sector for more than 5 years, or they have run their businesses either in their own definition of running a business. They could be in a particular stage, be it, let's say, they are a $1 million company or a company which is sustaining themselves, which means the intellectual wealth to run a business or to do something of their own. We are in India, it is in the right stage at the moment. And in the last 15-20 years, there has been a shift in the way of living, in the standard of living. A lot of things have gone up, which means that I would say, even without looking at the data, out of this, nearly 70% of people in this age group have the necessary capital, time, attention that they can invest to build a business for at least 2 years. They can give it a try. So, I think the economists and the government realized it, and in the last, I would say, 4, 5, 6 years, there has been an intentional effort to build a strong startup community, keeping that into perspective. And I think it is really contributing to the Indian economy. And one secret, which I think maybe it is widely discussed in India, but not discussed around the globe, that even with this similar population, even before the startup world or the startup development was happening in India, India was heavily, I would say more than 70% was relying on what is called as MSMEs, that is micro, medium and small enterprises, and SMEs, small and medium enterprises. So the mindset, the overall cultural mindset or the overall atmosphere and the energy was always entrepreneurial in nature, but the ecosystem was not there. In fact, pandemic was again a one more opportunity for a lot of leaders who were, let's say, in their age of late 30s or 40s, who were in their corporates. It also gave them an opportunity that, do I need to live life like this for the next 60 years with the amount of wealth that we have in our banks, or should I give it a try? I think all of them coming together has really ignited the entrepreneurial spirit here in India. And I feel I was fortunate enough to to be part of that ecosystem. I'm still part of that ecosystem. Only I have changed the hat that I have here. But other than that, I think it is very optimistic. But the ground reality is that we do not have any choice. We have to. Otherwise, how will we produce jobs? Every country, every sovereign country doesn't want brain drain. So how do we stop that as well? So I think there is a conscious effort being put in the ecosystem to ensure the startups are growing. And I was fortunate to contribute with a technology business incubator at a stage where the incubator has just started their operations 1.5 years before I joined them. And I'm really lucky to see at least 40 to 50 startups during my time grow to stage 2 or stage 10 in their journey. And a little bit about me on how I support emerging businesses. The first thing is that when you are building a 0 to 1 company, you would have a lot of questions around establishing businesses, going to market, establishing yourself, your own identity as an entrepreneur, getting your co-founder, getting your first 5-7 team members or interns to work with you. So my role was as a consultant, as a community builder, and as a conscious leader to be available to provide all the support that they need. So yeah, I mean, I was very lucky to wear that hat. I'm still lucky doing similar roles in whatever I do.
Is there anything that you particularly, let's see how that I'm going to throw lots of questions at you to see if one sticks, because this is on the fly. During that time with these new startups and your own role more of a consultant mentor to them, was there anything that struck you about the people who were in that ecosystem or in the incubator, or actually your approach at helping someone else become an entrepreneur? So basically anything that struck you that you learned that was a bit unexpected during those years?
Wow, this is making me also introspect. Thank you, Pilar, for taking that out. So one thing that I realized, and I am thankful to be part of this particular experience as a consultant and a community builder at the technology incubator, is that we were an incubation ecosystem today operates like a hospital. When a patient comes in, so you need to provide everything to ensure that the patient thrives or survives if something is very critical. So for me, my mindset today, I look at business challenges or any commercial challenge from that lens. I think that is a very big learning for me. I don't see what I will get out of it. I think that mindset was a critical learning that is part of my DNA today, and I think I've taken that aspect and I do everything wearing that hat. So that was very, very and to live by that for about 4 years, which means it has become part of the identity that you earlier referred to. And the other thing that I learned from these new companies or emerging businesses as startup founders, I think it's all over the world. I think founders are founders. They are innovators. They are creative people. They want to, add value to the society, or they would want to build wealth for themselves. They are obsessed with solving their problem. And I think, we use the word obsession both in positive sense as well as in negative sense. But I think in the journey, I realized that yes, it is important to be obsessed, but I think we have to be obsessed with the problem.
I like that.
People tend to be obsessed with the investors, where they would be raising funds, or they would be obsessed with their team members. But I think we have to be more focused and be obsessed on problem. This is the biggest learning that I gained in my journey.
Yes, very good. I will hold on to that and use it at some point. They're being obsessed with the problem and what we're trying to solve. Yeah. You've mentioned before you have these I think maybe principles or concepts like informed leadership, ethical business strategies, and workplace inclusiveness. Have they evolved from your work with the startups? Where do they come from?
Yeah. So Pilar, it comes from deep reflection. It comes from the same space where I took 1.5 years to actually write Strategy Leader with a Heart. So I think in the last 10 years, I have observed a lot of entrepreneurs, irrespective, a lot of, I would say, even corporate leaders or business leaders across the planet. I have made note of some gaps that are existing in each and every company. It still exists in any kind of a setup. And those gaps exist even in our family life, in our relationships as aspects. If I were to build a successful relationship with my wife or with my parents or with my community, I need to be transparent. And to be transparent, I need to keep myself informed and need to inform them about whatever good or not so good or my plans of action. A lot of these things in organizations, due to people's love for their titles, people's love for their association with a particular role, or leaders' association with their position in the society, after a point in time, it becomes strategic decisions, but the intensity of conscious decisions, informed decisions, collective decisions, collaborative decisions, after a point in time, the intensity goes down. So that is where the first principle of informed leadership comes, where I help these companies integrate certain frameworks that helps them take informed decisions, not only where they have to gain or acquire a new client, or not only when they want to raise money for their businesses, but also in their day-to-day business operations. Now, coming to the second aspect of ethical business strategies. Every organization will face this ethical challenge in long-term decision making. Sometimes organizations might be compromising on some values which sometimes they even do not realize, and they have to do certain things. If I need to save a tax and if I put money in a particular fund, now what to do? It's a framework established, and the framework ultimately will be a guideline. And ultimately, ethics is something which is very, very, very personal. But we have to constantly strive to again increase the intensity of how ethical we would operate. Because the upside of being ethical, being transparent, is that there will be less friction, there will be less mental chatter. People will be very open to talk about or give feedback to one another. A co-founder, I would just want our listeners to really see every day what efforts am I giving 20 minutes to discuss what are some of the business strategies or decisions that are aligned to the real values in which the entire world of commerce is structured. Am I being the best and the most ethical version? Is the business taking that shape? So I think that conversations are very important.
If I can add, because I think this, from my high horse here in my little home studio and a bit separated from the world at the moment, this ethical business strategies as well, I think that it refers back to the role of business in society as well. I think that that point sometimes, and I get it. Sometimes also we go into survival mode and we have to make decisions that we might actually not even be happy to take because we need to be unethical, because we need to survive and we can't see another way out. I mean, these situations put us in difficult positions. But I think that being able to operate in an ethical way is beneficial for all the things you're saying. And also within society, there's so much cynicism about what businesses do. and there's so much in the spotlight, especially the big ones, that actually that's a constant reminder of you can get away with things that are a bit dodgy. You can have your own ethics, and that spreads.
Yeah.
So I think that now, because businesses can very quickly be in the spotlight, and we have access to a lot of what they're doing, well, the things that they want us to know, I think that has increased as well recently. That is a very strong role, ethical role and duty actually of businesses to help society operate a little bit better. I mean, it's easy for me to say, but I think that hopefully that starts to play a little bit more in people's minds.
Yeah. Thank you, Pilar, for bringing this up. So sometimes what I do in such conversations, ethical conversations, I just ask these leaders, if your business is your newborn baby and baby is 1 month old, you would want baby. Would you make baby eat junk food? Would you make baby eat awake the entire night? Would you watch content which is negative in nature? No. That particular space is why, because you want to serve the baby with integrity and ethics. So you would ensure that the baby is eating good quality, drinking good quality milk, or the baby is eating dry fruits, or you're feeding your baby with the best food and content available to the planet. Now your business, be it an emerging business or be it a business that is existing for the last 50 years or 100 years, every day, what are you feeding ethically? And most of the times, I mean, I want the viewers also to, or the listeners also to introspect on this, that this is something that we need to discuss every day for 20 minutes and get that slowly, you have to align it to our business. So yeah, Pilar, that's it.
Great. I'm glad I went on that tangent. And then your third piece, the workplace inclusiveness.
Workplace inclusiveness, I think everyone is talking about it, Pilar. But I think, again, in my way of looking at workplace inclusivity, I mean, in India, where I live, I'm sure you would understand, when I was a kid, I used to go to my neighbor's house for festivals. Today we had a small experiment when, my neighbor was kind enough to, keep the music down. But I'm just saying that inclusiveness starts with home. It starts with how you're including your family members, your neighbors, your society, as you mentioned earlier, Pilar, and then at the workplace. And the funny part is, a lot of us who are working either in a distributed way of working or they are working at organizations, 8 to 12 hours, you are spending time with your team and you're spending less time with your family, maybe over weekends. To practice inclusivity at workplace, you have to practice first with the people that, who included you, because of which you were able to take the professional journey. And that is so important. So I focus on that aspect, that how you're being inclusive within your immediate community and how do you derive those learnings, because inclusiveness cannot be a guideline or just written on paper. Every leader has to craft based on their own strength, that this is how I am comfortable practicing inclusivity and how I take this to my organization. Because ultimately, if you see globally, the biggest fear of leader is people should not leave my organization when my organization is growing. It can't just happen just by putting out a framework. It has to be seen. And we live in a world of social media where if my experience with organization is not good, I am going to write on LinkedIn a huge post criticizing the organization. Well, that is something which is, part and parcel of the game. But the main part is, this is very important. My focus to my immediate family members is also very important.
Yeah, and again, you mentioned there, I hooked on to the fact what you said about doing it in a way in which we feel comfortable as well, because actually this dual nature as human beings, isn't it? That on the one hand we are very social, but on the other hand we're actually very territorial. We're very divisive. I mean, that's just the nature. It's when things are tough again, we look to our own kind and we'll protect ourselves. And actually, to be inclusive, and I speak from my own experience, is very difficult. It's very, very difficult. And I think that recognizing how difficult it is, recognizing, as you're saying, that this is something that goes beyond the workplace. It's very difficult to do it in one context and not the other. There might be a lot of cognitive dissonance and it might just mess with our minds. And also then it's the intention, and then to find a way that makes sense for us and not worry about the fact that we're not doing it another way, because there's millions of ways of being inclusive. And it means different things to different people. So maybe for a start, we just need some clarity of what we're talking about at an individual level, at an organizational level. I think sometimes when you hear about it, it seems like it would be something that's easy, but it's very difficult and very messy emotionally as well.
Yeah. So I think if we were to offer our listeners some baby steps that they can, take, I think firstly is recognizing that these invisible walls exist. I think that is the first step, because a lot of the solutions, implementable solutions, can be taken into action or account once we accept that this particular, area needs attention. I think acceptance is very important. And I think if I would say today we live in a world where all the information is available, I think we have to become more curious to understand why I am feeling this way and seek help. I think there is no rocket science in seeking help. I think what I have also realized, Pilar, is that people are forgetting to asking for help. Mm-hmm. I would say a reason is that maybe in the collective experience of professionals or individuals, people have faced, I would say, backlash, or people have gained not so good experiences with their close people that they have worked with or they have partnered with. So I think that consciousness comes with our past experiences. And that consciousness comes because they were also betrayed when they were growing. Yeah. So I think somewhere there needs to be a movement where we understand that, hey, this is not happening only to me. This is happening to the majority of the population, even the politicians or celebrities or anyone, we know. So I think that awareness, it starts with that awareness and asking for help. And then I think one good lesson that I learned recently is that our vocabulary, a lot of things can be changed with the right choice of words. And this is something that, touched my heart, that it is very easy to, let's say, put across your frustration just like that. And that impact goes to the other people. But then if we are just shifting the words, shift your words, shift your context, I think, that is where the beginning of the solution happens. Because I am not a trained psychologist or a trained professional to talk about what you need to do. But I think what we can discuss here is that, hey, am I recognizing? Have I accepted this? At least I have accepted. I think the job will be done if, we all accept it.
Yeah, maybe. Yes. Yeah, very good. Thank you. Wow, with all of that, then how are you taking your experience with startups in India, your discovery and consolidation of some of what you believe in into these principles as well? How are you taking that abroad? Let's go back to the distributed work, because I understand you are working with, is it Startup Boot Camp, the virtual mentoring with the Netherlands?
Yes. First of all, it came from a space of giving. I think it's a big skill, I think, which, as I said earlier, I think we all are good givers, but we all have to become best givers. And I'm also striving for that. I'm also learning. So I happened to, read their mentoring program on LinkedIn, and I expressed my interest to mentor startups for two reasons. One, I really wanted to support the emerging businesses not only in Asia but around the planet. And I thought, this is a wonderful way, because the way that model works is that it works in a distributed model. So I can connect with the emerging businesses online for a mentoring session, or evaluating their journey, or where they have reached, or evaluating their products and services that they are building. So I think it's more than a quarter, and I've been fortunate enough to go through, or rather listen to the pitches of more than 60 startups in the field of AI, that is artificial intelligence, deep tech, agriculture technology, and education technology. And the way the emerging business are going about problems is wonderful. It's very inspiring. And Startup Bootcamp, I think it's number one accelerator based out of Europe. So I think I'm also learning with them, because mentoring startups and evaluating their products from that part of the world is also making me a better professional in the bigger scheme of things. So, as I said, earlier, emerging businesses or new businesses is something that is very, very critical, not only from the human experience, but it is also the need of the global society, that more businesses will lead to more people getting jobs, and more people creating value out of it, including the countries. So that way, it has been a very enriching experience. A couple of takeaways is that I found the startups and the ecosystem to be very professional. Everything, happens on time. Very proactive in listening to the problems of startup founders, because again, listening is a very underrated skill. I think it is so important. The world of technology will only make us distracted, and listening and giving attention are the two, I would say, superpowers of 21st century in a bigger scheme of things, and which is what I liked. And I think one of the memorable thing that happened recently is that they sent me a token of gratitude, a kind of a goodie bag from Netherlands last, I think, just a month ago. So I think it's been a successful association, and I think I would continue to learn and grow with that. So yeah, that's about my experience.
What was in the goodie bag?
Yeah, there was a wonderful T-shirt, a diary. I think I'm having the diary here,
Okay.
and a wonderful note thanking all the mentors. I think which they have shared with all the mentors. But what I like is that within a week, within a week of the completion of the program, I think they sent it. So I think that is where I really appreciate the discipline, which I think a lot of new businesses have to focus on also.
Yeah, really nice. That is great to hear that, to hear you've the very intentional gratitude, and
Yes.
really, really important, because often it's like, oh, we don't have time for that. Or actually, nobody has the time to even think that it needs to be done. So fantastic. And just a personal question. So my husband is from the Netherlands, so I have great love for that culture and country. Is the bootcamp working only with the Netherlands startups, or is it indeed distributed?
They invite startups from Europe, or they invite startups. I think there were a lot of startups from London who were part of the shortlisting program, where they shortlist so about 200 or 300 startups pitch every quarter, out of which they select 50-60 startups based on their stage and offer them support. But what I also understand is that they also support other startups in some form of the other. Recently, I was part of their small initiative, which was in Australia. So I think their mission is to help 1 lakh startups in Europe, and of course globally, tech-driven startups as part of their bigger mission. And thank you for bringing that Netherlands culture, which I think you are familiar with. My ex-CEO of the incubator was in Netherlands for 5 years. One of the spiritual programs that I did, the head was from Netherlands. I have made two best friends in one of the remote communities that I am part of, out of which one is from Netherlands, and I was in Portugal for a event earlier this year. There's a community called as Running Remote, specifically for remote leaders. I met two college students who were from Netherlands, and we had a good discussion. And we were discussing about gap year. When you take a 1 year gap in India, everyone will look at you for a year. Okay, this person is wasting his year, but in Netherlands, it is very okay, very normal. So I was like, hey, like maybe my heart is from Netherlands is something that I thought. Thank you for putting that up.
Well, it would fit very well because the Dutch have traditionally and still have had a very good idea about how work fits into life. I'm not going to talk about work-life balance because I think it's just how we approach work and how we approach the non-work. So it makes sense that there's some of an attraction. Yeah, very interesting. My cousin's niece, for her gap year, she's just got back. She went to Japan.
Wow.
To exchange conversation. She'd been learning Japanese, and now she's back going to university. I don't know if it's still common in the UK, a gap year, but again, in Spain, it would be like, what? What do you mean taking a year off to do what? So, I think this is a lovely place to stop the conversation for today, because we've looked at how you ended up calling yourself a distributed work practitioner and a strategy leader with a heart. It makes complete sense after hearing you speak about your route to work. And we have got some idea now, of course, of what might be happening in India. And I just find it fascinating to just hear about other places and how the world of work is evolving and why. What are the driving forces behind the evolution? I think that was really interesting. But before we tell listeners where they can connect with you, is there anything else you would like to say to our listeners?
Thank you, Pilar. You have also been a source of inspiration, because I know that I think you're almost close to 400 podcasts is what I understand.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, I know that. And last year, when you came as a guest on the virtual leadership podcast that I do on LinkedIn, I really learned a lot from you then. Since then, I always was manifesting that in 2024, I would love to have a podcast with you and share my views with your viewers. So thank you for making my small dream come true. I have one more dream to record a live podcast with you whenever I am in London or whenever you are in Bombay. Other thing, the best way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. Also, in September, I have started a leadership-focused newsletter.
So we've got LinkedIn, and then in Substack, what's the name of your newsletter?
Just write Sagar Chandni, my full name. Sagar Chandni.
Okay, great. So we can look for that. And are you still running your podcast on LinkedIn?
Yes, I think it's been almost about more than a year now, and I think I've done about 65 LinkedIn Live podcasts, and by April 31st, I am targeting to complete 100. So yeah, excellent. I'm very much there, and I think I would also suggest all our listeners to also look forward to the podcast that Pilar and I did it a few months ago. So I will share that link so you can also listen to that podcast as well.
Remind us of the name of that show.
It's Virtual Global Leadership Podcast.
Excellent. Well, we put a link in the show notes anyway. Well, Sagar, thank you so much. It's been fantastic. Yes, I'll see you around. Yes. Thank you.
Pilar, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
A big thank you for listening to the 21st Century Work-Life podcast. We know there are many other shows for you to choose from. Remember to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app, and you can check out the full show notes over at virtualnotdistant.com/podcasts. Talking of podcasts, we have another show you can listen to, Management Cafe, which you should also be able to find on all podcast apps. I have been Pilar Orti. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, enjoy.